Hey, welcome back to the wrestling show. We're keeping it real, goes right. Welcome back to Real Take Wrestle Talk live here on YouTube. And welcome to everyone who is listening on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you're listening to this today. I'm Omer, and I love wrestling. What a weekend it's been. What a week it's been for pro wrestling. AEW All Out has come and gone, and it was honestly one of, if not the greatest nights of pro wrestling to ever grace God's earth. And my God, am I excited. I know there's some people in the chat who are probably excited. What's up, Cincy? Good to see you again, and good to see everyone else. Not good to see that Trevor isn't here today. However, we're going to make the most of it as we run through what happened at All Out, some updates on WrestleMania 38, not the location, but some updates on how that's going to occur. There's a lot of other information that's going to come out about this in the next few days, but we're going to talk about it here. We're also going to talk about what the hell is AEW going to do next, and can they actually one-up themselves as far as surprises and big shows after All Out. We'll get into that. We'll get into all the shocking debuts, such as that of Bryan Danielson, Ruby Soho, and I'm doing it wrong. There we go. Adam Cole, baby. I'm excited, in case you guys can't tell, but we're going to be doing the show a little bit differently. We usually segment it out by promotion, but it's going to be a little topsy-turvy all day, but bear with us. It is for good reason. And let's start off. Today. Well, actually, let's start off if you're listening to this on YouTube, or watching this rather. Hit that like button. Help out the algorithm. Hit that notification bell and subscribe so you get notified whenever a new video is released. That's the best way for you to support this channel. Anyway, like I was saying, let's get right into it. And let's talk about AEW All Out. AEW All Out 2021 has come and gone, and it was one of the greatest nights of pro wrestling I have ever seen. This, I know it might sound like hyperbole. It might sound like I'm capping, but I'm 100% real with you. This is the greatest pro wrestling show to ever be put on since WrestleMania X7 in 2001. If you don't believe me, then you probably haven't watched it. And then if you've watched it and you still don't believe me, then either watch it again or crawl in a hole somewhere, because you're never going to be happy with anything. But it was a great night. It was a great night, not just for AEW, but for anyone who loves wrestling, for anyone who loves to see storylines, moments, matches. All of it came together in one beautiful show that was AEW All Out 2021. Does that mean I loved everything on the show? No, not really. This match, for example, the Jericho versus MJF match, I have some qualms about, but I was entertained, and that was the purpose of the match. Did I like the booking of the Casino Battle Royale? Not particularly, but I was entertained, and it still shocked me when Ruby Soho came out. But all in all, the matches, aside from one big one involving Paul White and QT Marshall, outside of that match, every match on this card was amazing. The AEW Tag Team title match was by far the best match on this card, and we'll talk about that, especially in a different segment. But I want to get into the night. So AEW All Out has come and gone, like I said, and Tony Khan has already announced that it is going to break records as far as pay-per-view numbers for AEW. It is going to completely shatter the overall amount of money that they've made at the concessions and what have you, the gate prices as they call it. It's going to blow all of their previous records out of the way, and it was a great show. Like I said, one of the greatest, I think, ever put on, and definitely AEW's best show, and that's saying a lot. For this to be AEW's best show, that means it's better than the Double or Nothing show they put on in 2019, which was their first ever show, and that was arguably more historic in the grand scheme of things because it was the inception of AEW, but this show was just almost perfection personified. As perfect as you can get in pro wrestling, as good as you can get in pro wrestling. It had a 5-star, 7-star, I don't care what you want to call it, an amazing, one of the best tag team matches I've ever seen, with Penta and Phoenix winning the tag team titles. It had a great opener with Miro taking on Eddie Kingston, and Eddie Kingston played his part beautifully. Of course, we had CM Punk's return, which again was lost in all of this. What if I told you that CM Punk would return and that wouldn't be the overall sentiments? That wouldn't be what people were talking about coming out of the pay-per-view. You might think I was crazy, but I can assure you I am not, because that's exactly what happened. Because what are people talking about? People are talking about Ruby Soho's debut. People are talking about Adam Cole, baby's debut. People are talking about the fact that Bryan Danielson, the best technical wrestler of all time, debuted for All Elite Wrestling. People are talking about All Elite Wrestling, and people are talking about how much they love pro wrestling. That is what you want coming out of a pay-per-view. That is what you want coming out of a huge event like this, and AEW knocked it out of the park in a manner that, honestly, WWE has not done for a very, very long time. So it ranks as one of the best pay-per-views ever, and it was really that damn good. Go check it out. The matches were great. Skip over QT Marshall versus Paul White. Unless you really need a bathroom break, then you can just play it. It's a quick 3-minute match, but CM Punk's return was great. We'll talk about that more in depth. We'll talk about Ruby Soho being all in and all elite and everything else, but I just want to really hone in on the fact that I thought that this was not only a historic show, but it was a show that proved a lot. It proved that pro wrestling, if you are a fan of pro wrestling, you do have a place to go to now in mainstream America to go and watch the best pro wrestlers battle it out, to watch these storylines develop. And you know, we'll get into it more as the show goes on, as the reasons to why some of the people who appeared and debuted either left WWE or got into AEW, and then some of their motivations, because they are also key. They're also key as far as why this worked and the extent to where it worked. But this pay-per-view as a whole, I thought, was AEW's best. I thought it is the best pay-per-view I have ever seen live, as far as, you know, watching it live as it happened. I wasn't there when X7 happened, so I can't really speak to it. I know X7's a great pay-per-view, and I will still say that that's probably still the best one ever, because it was the crescendo, the climax of the Attitude Era. But this was in my time, in my generation, whatever you want to say, this was perfect. 10 out of 10, 11 out of 10, 15 stars, no Tokyo Dome needed, Dave Meltzer. Let's just hit the chat real quick. Ravens Flock says, been waiting all week for this. Great week. NFL Kickoff 2. NFL Kickoff 2, yep. And you want to hear me talk about the NFL Kickoff, be sure to subscribe to this channel, hit that notification bell, and also check out our show, Real Take Sports Talk, on Wednesdays, 7 p.m., where I'll talk about the NFL, and we'll do that tomorrow night. Cincy Edits in the chat says, WrestleMania 30 is the worst WrestleMania. I don't care, buddy. Oh, Cincy, I need you to hit up the Peacock real quick and check out WrestleMania 2, check out WrestleMania 4, check out WrestleMania 11, although that's a better one than people give it credit for. But definitely check out WrestleMania 27. WrestleMania 27, if you want worst WrestleMania of all time, 27 and 2 is where you probably should go. I don't know where you're getting 30 from. 30 was probably one of the best of all time. That was the one where Daniel Bryan, the Miracle Kid, the Miracle on Bourbon Street, whatever you want to call it. That's when Daniel Bryan beat Triple H, Batista, and Randy Orton in the same damn night. Why did he never put that over as much as he probably should have? Anyway, we'll see. But back to All Out, back to this amazing show. As far as where does AEW go from here? Because this was such a big show. This was such a climax. This was such an important show. And a lot of people now have these high expectations for AEW. And the question is, can AEW live up to them? And honestly, the short answer is, I think so. Because they have not done anything to say that they can't. There were high expectations. Unbelievable expectations going into Double or Nothing, and especially coming out of Double or Nothing. and they knocked it out of the park for a year and a half. There were unbelievable expectations after they got the new deal from Turner when Rampage debuted. They've knocked it out of the park so far. Everything that they've done over the past year and a half, 2 years, they've done to the best of their ability, and they've knocked it out of the park. And it's a testament not only to the EVPs, but to Tony Khan, but to all of the wrestlers who are there from day one. I'm talking about Jungle Boy. I'm talking about Luchasaurus. I'm talking about Jack Perry. I'm talking about Britt Baker. I'm talking about anyone, Chris Statlander, all of those people who've been there since day one, working their asses off to get this product over. They are the reasons why they're able to knock it out of the park so much, and it's all a cohesive unit. There's no politicking. There's no bitching. There's no, oh, goddamn, pal, he's got to worry about it. So you got to grab the brass ring. No. The brass ring's there for everyone to take, and everyone gets a piece. That's what makes AEW so great. It feels like a sport. It feels like the talent want to be there, and the talent will even tell you they want to be there in a way that you almost never hear from anyone in any other wrestling company. And that goes to the backstage culture. That goes to just how cohesive this unit is. So if you're asking me, oh, well, is AEW going to be able to one-up themselves? It depends on what you mean by one-up. Are they going to be able to maintain this consistency? I think so. Because, again, so far, in a pandemic, in the middle of a pandemic, with no fans in the stands, they were putting on some of the best wrestling shows ever. They were putting on some of the best wrestling matches ever. Rey Fenix versus Kenny Omega. I had that as the match of the year. And then Walter and Ilya Dragunov came along. And then Rey Fenix and his brother went out there and had another match of the year. So they have been consistently putting together the best product. They now have the best talent in the world by adding Adam Cole, CM Punk, Ruby Soho, Bryan Danielson. And now you have more matches to work with. You have more matchups to work with. You have more people, more eyeballs on the product. Rampage, a show that that premieres a show that is on at 10 p.m. on a Friday night, consistently does around 700,000 people per episode. That's an accomplishment. You have Dynamite doing 1 million viewers per episode, Wednesday night, primetime. One of the best, if not consistently the best show in the key demo that, if you're in business, you know, everybody looks at the key demos 18 to 49. They're wiping out everyone in that key demo. The people who spend money, who are 18 to 49, they watch this product. They spend money on this product. They spend money on the things that the advertisers are advertising, which is the whole reason. This is how they get paid. That's how the business works, people. That's how the business works. So let's just get that out of the way. And let's just say, if AEW has these fresh matchups now, they have this fresh product, they have the enthusiasm of a fan base that is rabid and hungry. And they have shown almost no reason for us to think, oh, well, they're going to fuck that up. It's a lot of pressure, but they can do it. They have a big show coming up on September 22nd in Queens at the Arthur Ashe Stadium. They're going to have a mega card for that. A lot of their best shows haven't even been pay-per-views. They've been dynamites. They're going to have Full Gear on November 13th. And they just keep building up these super shows, these dynamites. And people want to watch their weekly television show. And then they want to... It's business and it's working and the fans love it. That's the best part. So as far as, what the outlook is, I think the outlook is as great as it can be. I think the outlook is... It's definitely better than Tony Khan actually had it originally, because he said that this point was not imaginable really until a few years down the line when he originally founded the company. And now it's just the expectations have just been completely out of the park. Like Tony Khan said that he did not expect for the company to be at this point right now. And the fact that it's here, it's a testament to all of the work that everyone in that company has done and the mentality of that company and how it's different from other wrestling companies. It's not an individualistic standpoint. It's not an individualistic approach. They work as a team to get the product over and get themselves over. And it proves that, hey, you don't need to pick one. Everything can be over. Everyone can be over in different ways. Like, obviously, Fuego del Sol, he's over, but he loses every match. Like, he's 1 in, 44 or whatever? He loses every match, but it's okay because he's over, because he's a personality. There's different ways to get people over, and AEW realized that, and they've harnessed that. And another thing they've realized, and that helps them, I think, moving forward, is the fact that they don't have to rely on rematches. Most of their talent maybe wrestles once or twice a month. And that's a good thing when you're trying to build stars and build people and build an audience that is attracted to watching these people wrestle. Because then they'll tune in when, if you like CM Punk, when CM Punk wrestles, I will tune in. If you like Bryan Danielson, or if you like Malachi Black, you'll tune in when Malachi Black's match is happening, or Ruby Soho, and the list goes on and on and on. And the fact that they're able to really spread out these matches and spread out these different cards is great, because it keeps everything fresh, it keeps the talent fresh, and it just buys them time. So they're able to elongate better while not making the product stale, because they have enough stars. They built enough stars, and they've acquired enough stars now that sky's the limit for this company. And before anyone in the chat or anyone who's watching this gets all moany or whatever, no. Do I think they're going to put WWE out of business? No, because that's not the point of the company. The point of the company is to excel at what they do, and what they do is put on great wrestling shows, and they've been doing that for the past 2 years, and they're probably going to continue to do that. And when they don't start doing that, you will hear it from me. But All Out 2021, to close the book on this, All Out 2021 is the best wrestling show I have ever watched live on pay-per-view. It is the best wrestling show since WrestleMania X7, arguably the best wrestling show of all time. And again, if you don't agree with me, go and actually watch it, you fucking marks. Love you, by the way. And I also would love it if you guys hit that like button, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you get notified whenever a new video is released. We got daily videos, clips of this show. Also, got a new Sports Revisited coming out pretty soon, and we'll be talking about that and much more later on in this program. Also, Real Take Wrestle Talk every Tuesday nights right here at this time. Real Take Sports Talk on Wednesday nights, 7 p.m. And our new show, Real Take Football Talk, is going to premiere this Sunday morning at 10 a.m. Going to break down all the key matchups going into NFL Sunday. It is going to be an amazing show, an amazing ride. I'm partially crazy because I'm doing all these shows, but I love it as well. So please hit that like button, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. So, like I said, today's show is going to be a little different than we usually do it. We usually separate these things out by promotion. So we're going to be doing a little bit of spreading that out a little bit. But before we get to any of that, let's go back to the chat. Since he says they ended the damn streak, he's talking about WrestleMania 30. He's still making the case that WrestleMania 30 is the worst WrestleMania. They ended the streak, so worst WrestleMania, I don't care. Okay, fair. Look, I understand that. I was shocked. I screamed. like a little girl when The Undertaker and his streak got ended. That's fair. Look, but that's heat, and Brock Lesnar got over because of it. That's one of the few good uses, I guess, of heat that WWE have used, or rub or whatever. It's one of the best uses they've ever had, because to this day Brock Lesnar is still riding that high. And hey, it worked, so it's great. Anyway, speaking of WWE and things not working there, let's talk about some things that actually are really, really, in my opinion, not working in that company. And one of the big things that we saw for WWE, or we've seen in WWE, are the constant rematches, the constant uses of, legends to get over and to keep viewership up. But the reality is viewership is waning. And it was a real question, right? It was a real question. On the heels of AEW All Out being heralded as one of the best wrestling shows of all time, many wondered what the reaction from WWE would be. and if we get a fantastic response to the historic wrestling show on Raw, which took place the night after All Out. The answer to both of those questions apparently were a resounding no, as WWE put on a below average Raw, which amounts to a pretty shitty wrestling show, and Vince McMahon apparently was not even at Raw. So it didn't look like they really cared, or they didn't want to put an emphasis on responding in a resounding way to AEW's program. So the question is now, I guess, coming out of this, what are some key problems that WWE are facing, and why wouldn't they respond? Because you could argue 20, 30 years ago, Vince McMahon, if he had seen his competition, which is what AEW are, I don't care what anyone says, they're all WWE and AEW. What fan base are they fighting for? Whose attention are they fighting for? Wrestling fans. WWE, their competition, just put on one of the best wrestling shows I've ever seen, and I'm a longtime wrestling fan, and they responded by tearing the card that they had scheduled for Raw to shreds, and just putting on rematches that we've already seen or already are going to see a few more times. I'm talking to you, Sheamus versus Damian Priest for the United States title. But and it speaks to a problem. And I'm not sure whether it's Vince McMahon not realizing what AEW is, because I fully think that Vince McMahon knows the danger that AEW poses. I fully believe that Vince McMahon knows that AEW, amongst hardcore wrestling fans who spend money, is arguably more popular. But I also know that Vince McMahon, at this point, knows that he's getting $1 billion from Peacock. He's getting hundreds of millions of dollars from Saudi Arabia. He's getting hundreds of millions of dollars from USA and Fox for these TV deals. They have revenue streams coming for the next almost decade that aren't going to stop. So his business at the end of the day is not going to be affected too much, because he's built it up to the point where WrestleMania, as a brand, WrestleMania will always sell a certain number of tickets and make him money. But that doesn't mean that the company itself doesn't have problems. It's the degree of which they're taking these problems seriously. And after All Out, the fact that they didn't respond means they're not. And just, if you don't believe me, look at the creative. They've put on some of the worst creative in pro wrestling. I'm even including Impact Wrestling on Monday Night Raw. Monday Night Raw is a train wreck of a show. There's reports that Vince McMahon, he tears up the script to shreds almost every week because he doesn't like it, pal, and we need to change it, and rewrites the script. And these are not just reports by insiders and dirt sheets. Go ask CJ Perry, who talked about this. Go ask John Moxley, who talked about this. Go ask anyone who's left WWE who's opened up about this. Brody Lee. All of them have stated something to this fact. And if you talk to people who know the inner workings of the company, that is also true. So there's a lot to be desired in that company. And if we're looking at the way that they responded, they obviously did not really think that. They were not bothered. They were truly not bothered by this, and it's in the booking. It's in the creative. The consistent lack of creativity, the consistent lack of logical storytelling. They had a logical storyline where they could have had Drew McIntyre and Jinder Mahal fight. For what reason? Well, one tag team partner won the WWE title before the other, and he's also the one that's obviously the least talented of the two. Maybe you could turn him into a braggadocious heel who just that's all they need to fight about. But no, instead they had to make it about a fucking sword. A fucking sword. It sometimes it's really just simple, but they have to overcomplicate it and put their hands on everything and muddy the waters. That's what it's about for Vince. And it's always and that's one thing consistently you will see and hear about Vince is he kind of needs that control. And Vince McMahon is a man who, for decades, has been all about control. And whether even during the Attitude Era, he couldn't help but keep himself off TV. And I'm not saying that was a bad thing. Look, he was part of the ratings. He was part of the reason that show was so good for its time. And I'm not arguing against any of that, but it's just a fact that over time, Vince has always wanted and has always ran on controlling the narrative, controlling the product, controlling his company. And it's gotten to the point where his control is hurting what he has created, and it is hurting the fan base, the very fan base that made him a billionaire. And to take a line from CM Punk, Vince McMahon is a millionaire who should be a multi-billionaire, but he couldn't get his own head out of his you-know-where. And it's sad for me to say, because I like Vince McMahon as in wrestling, in terms of professional wrestling. You can't not like Vince. Like, he's Vince McMahon. But the truth is that the way he has treated pro wrestling is just a slap in the face to anyone who ever grew up watching it and anyone who spends money on pro wrestling. The fact that he always wants to separate himself from pro wrestling. The fact that he always wants to create this barrier that we're not pro wrestling, we're sports entertainment. We make movies, pal. That's fine. But you put on a pro wrestling show. The W in the WWE, one of them stands for wrestling. World Wrestling Entertainment. And they've gotten so far away from that. And I think part of that is because of this control that Vince has always wanted. And they're not letting talent really have too much input, or most talent have too much input on their storylines. We're seeing what's happening down in NXT. They're completely rebranding arguably the best wrestling show in WWE, the best wrestling show in WWE. They're completely rebranding it and making it into Vince's baby. And the reason it was so great was because Vince was nowhere near it. And I think we've come at a crossroads, honestly, as far as what Vince McMahon was. He was the best wrestling promoter in the entire world at one point. And what he is now, which is arguably one of the worst wrestling promoters. And honestly, not even a good sports entertainment promoter, because if you watch a majority of the shows that he produces, they're not that great. They're not that consistent. They're not that logical. And they make the wrestlers and the fans look like fools for participating and watching respectively. And it's sad. It's sad because I want to like WWE. I don't watch Raw knowing that I'm gonna see a terrible product because I want to find things to critique. I don't want that. I'm looking forward to Raw thinking, all right, maybe this is the week where Vince finally says, all right, we're going to make a logical wrestling show. Maybe this is the week where he finally gives in to, Bruce Pritchard or even one of the wrestlers and said, we're going to put on a great program for once. And SmackDown is great, but I'm talking about Raw, which is the quote-unquote flagship or one of the flagships. And it is just sad to watch sometimes, truly, as a wrestling fan. Go to the chat real quick. Cameron, welcome to the chat, Cameron. Cameron in the chat says, the Vince McMahon Bob Costas interview from back in 2000s revealed a lot about Vince. Highly suggest you see that interview. Yes, I agree. Because, again, it goes back to this thing of control, and I think that's one of the things that Vince, he knows how to keep it professional more so now, but I think especially back then when the XFL happened and the way it turned out and the way that he was honestly, the way that they were coming after the WWF at the time, I still, to this day, I will say is unfair considering all the other junk that was on TV at the time that people were watching. But I think, obviously you could see he lost his cool because he wasn't in control of the situation. He wasn't in control of the narrative, and he couldn't himself control the narrative that was being put out, and he didn't know how to respond to it, and that's why he flexed his muscles. But yeah, go back and watch that. It is very revealing. But I also think if you look at it, Costas was also, that's the reaction Costas wanted out of Vince too. Vince's XFL failure was pretty bad because he promoted crude content and attempted to justify it. Yeah, but it was. I'm not defending it, but he wasn't the only one, and that's just the truth. He wasn't the only one, and I think the original XFL, yes, especially the original XFL, it's a meme and it's hilarious. It's ridiculous to watch back now, but the original XFL, yeah, no. The XFL that came up in 2020, I loved, by the way. I want that to be clear. I loved the XFL in 2020 because they put on better football, better like spring football than I had ever seen before. Better than the AFL, better than the Arena League, better than the AAF. It was, I think, the year before. They put on really good football, really compelling like interviews that they had on the field. And they also put it in places where the fan bases were hungry. Like me, I lived in D.C. at the time. And in D.C., there really isn't a football team you can go and watch. Yes, the Washington football team isn't really in D.C., people. The Washington football team is in Maryland. And it's like an hour away from on Metro, which is how most of the people go to the games. That's how they get there. So, yeah, anyway. More on that tomorrow night on Real Take Sports Talk. But yeah, no, the original XFL, yeah, that's what it was. And it's weird because I think Vince has this desire to always not only be in control, but when he's not in control, he always goes back to certain things. And when the XFL was on its legs and it wasn't working or ratings were floundering, he went to wrestling. And yes, sure, some wrestling people went back and watched it, but it wasn't enough to compete with the people who were the drop in ratings and the people who were going off. So again, it comes back to, I think, control for Vince. And I think that control is just all in all bad for wrestling. Anyway, I want to play a quick clip. I want to play a clip real quick of Mick Foley and something he had to say about the All Out pay-per-view and WWE in general. So let's take a listen to that.
Hardcore legend Mick Foley. I'd like to title this video, WWE, We've Got a Problem, because I think you do. And that problem is that WWE is no longer the place for talent to aspire to. Part of it is because AEW is doing a great job of attracting great talent, proven talent, building other talent, creating storylines, but part of it is a problem of your own making. I think younger talent sees the way that developmental characters are cut or left by the wayside, or in the case of Karrion Kross, greatly watered down and even made a joke of when they debut on the main roster. If it's not broke, don't fix it. If I was an aspiring talent now, big league talent with a major decision to make, I'm not sure that I would trust WWE Creative to do the right thing with my career. You guys did wonders with me back in the day, but that was a different time, different place. If it was today, I'm not sure I would trust the powers to be with my career in their hands. And until that changes, WWE, you've got a problem.
So Mick Foley right there saying that WWE has a problem. And that problem is the way that they treat their talent, the way that they run their creative, and it's hurting them, and it's actually helping their competition. And AEW, by comparison, is doing the exact opposite. They're doing things that make talent want to go there. They're doing things that attract talent and make talent trust the process there and make talent more willing, young talent especially, which is the well of talent you want right now, more willing to go there in the future. Like people, and I think this is important because what is hot right now in wrestling is AEW. Over the next 4 or 5 years, there's going to be an entire generation of wrestlers growing up. And their dreams of what they want to be and where they want to go are going to change. Because for a very long time, it was, I want to be a WWE wrestler. I want to be a WWE superstar. I want to wrestle in WWE. That was the dream for us growing up, from people my age, in their 20s, growing up. And that dream is going to change for whatever the next generation is, and even for some people right now as they're seeing all these developments before their eyes. AEW putting on a great show. AEW signing talent. AEW managing talent in a good way. And by comparison, WWE doing everything to bury young talent and emphasize the fact that the generations that came before you are actually better than you. And you know it, to quote MJF. But knowing all of that, and I think Mick Foley, for him to say this also, let's be clear, for Mick Foley, a WWE Hall of Famer, a guy who grew up, his dream was not to be in WCW. His dream was to be in WWE, WWF at the time. For him to come out and say this, that WWE has a problem, especially with young talent, it is a big freaking deal. Because it means that he even recognizes, someone who was in the WWE system, by the way, just a few years ago, recognizes that WWE have a problem in the way that they approach especially younger talent. And if they don't change that, that dream is going to change. And then that well of talent that they've relied on for decades is going to dry up and go to their competition in AEW or go somewhere else. Go to New Japan. Go to Ring of Honor. Go anywhere else. Because also, all those companies happen to be working together now because they found out that, maybe it's not about squeezing the life out of your competition. Maybe it's about building up wrestling so that all wrestling is good and working together to build up all these different brands so that everyone gets over, everyone has a place to work, and the fans love it, and more fans watch the product, and more fans become fans. I think there's an obvious disconnect in the way the WWE approaches that. They approach anything as any other wrestling as either competition or minor leagues, and I'm sure there's still a little bit of talk about that, but it is very damning for WWE that not only did a Hall of Famer and Mick Foley come out and say this, but it's very obvious if you watch the product. If look at the way WWE treats people in NXT. They're cutting people left and right. They're rebranding the product and recreating what it's supposed to be. They're emphasizing size over talent. They're emphasizing these honestly, these bullshit storylines that they've come up with that aren't good, that aren't logical, that aren't fun to watch, over storylines that are simple and make sense and people want to watch. It is such a dichotomy in the way that these two franchises in AEW and WWF do business and approach talent and the fans, that it is honestly, I hope WWE puts a lot of their future into making movies, as Vince likes to say, because pretty soon, man, wrestling fans are not gonna they're just gonna see, wow, one company is so much better than the other at putting on a product or putting on this product that I love, and I'm kind of sick of it. I'm kind of sick of this company that's been around for 30 years that I watch for no reason. Eventually, people are going to be like, I've been watching this for 30 years, and the past 5 or whatever, it hasn't been good. In fact, it's been shitty, and I'm wasting my time. Why would I watch this again? I don't need to watch this. I already have something on Wednesdays and Fridays I can watch that's 3 hours a week, and I love it. Just saying. Anyway. But that's the problems that WWE has to come to terms with. And at the end of it all ends with Vince. It all ends with Vince. If Vince McMahon believes in something, it will usually happen. If he doesn't, then it won't. And I honestly still believe that Vince McMahon he just does not, unfortunately, see AEW as a problem for him or as anything but a minor league. Which, and again, it's sad because he probably won't watch the pay-per-view. He'll hear about it, but he won't watch the pay-per-view, and he won't get it. And that's the thing. People say all the time, Vince is out of touch. He is. He'll have these moments. Oh, he brought back Brock Lesnar, and oh, it's so awesome, and it was so cool. Yeah. What happened next? Nothing. The next night on Raw, nothing happened. And then everything they build up to the next week on Raw, guess what? Oh, all of that doesn't matter because... I'm sorry. I'm trying to be nice here, but WWE, you got to change it. Otherwise, you're alienating all your purist fans, which is something I don't want to do. So if you're listening to this on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, please be sure to hit that follow button and leave us a 5-star review if you're listening on Apple Podcasts. It helps us out. Also, if you're listening or watching on YouTube, hit that like button, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you get notified whenever a new video is released. Let's continue talking about AEW. Let's continue talking about pro wrestling. We'll get back to WWE in just a little bit. But Ruby Soho made her debut for All Elite Wrestling on Sunday, winning the Women's Casino Battle Royale at AEW 21 at All Out 2021. The former Ruby Riott in securing her victory, has also earned a title shot at Britt Baker's AEW Women's World Title. Fightful Select has now learned more details on how Soho's signing happened. According to the report, there was an immediate interest in booking Soho by multiple promotions following her release from WWE in early June, but these individuals were informed that she was not looking to take any bookings. It was then assumed by bookers that she had agreed to join AEW, who had expressed interest in bringing her in. It was also reported that a number of people within All Elite Wrestling pushed for the promotion to sign Soho once she became available. Soho's kind nature in WWE has actually made her a fan of backstage at all promotions, and it's also said that people in WWE were still happy, were very happy, in fact, and over the moon was the quote from the Fightful Select report, that she had secured a new home in AEW. People are very happy for Ruby Soho. Go watch the moment when she came out. It was amazing. Great pop. One of the biggest pops of the night. And honestly, it was one of those moments that had you smiling. Like, you could not help but smile. Because it's a perfect fit. Ruby Soho in AEW is a perfect fit because, if we're being quite honest, she never really fit the WWE mold. And I don't think she fit Vince McMahon's mold. But she is perfect for AEW because she's over. She's over. She can work. That's not even, boom, non-factor. All of that stuff. She's great in the ring. She can cut a promo if she's ever has a mic in front of her, which they never really did in WWE. But there's a lot to build on. And even WWE, to an extent, recognized it. They made an entire stable and named it after her. The Riot Squad. They named it after her. She was a leader. So there was even a lot there. They just never utilized her to the extent they probably should have. But Ruby Soho in AEW makes a lot of sense. I think her versus Britt Baker is going to be very compelling. She comes in and she's automatically a superstar. She comes in, she's automatically a top-notch wrestler in a top-notch feud. She has a lot of hype about her. Her music, the name, big thank you to Lars for that. There's Lars Fredrickson. The big thank you to him for that. So there's a lot to like, and the fans want to like her. And like I said, this is something that they put in a situation. It's so simple. Over person comes in, wins the Battle Royal, has a number one contenders match, and just book a feud over the title. It's so simple, and it'll work. And Ruby Soho, she's also, again, she has that very, very appealing. She's very appealing to a lot of people, and a lot of people who honestly aren't looking for WWE divas or that type of mold that Vince honestly caters after. Like, it's a more alternative feel, and it's cool. She's cool. And it's a very similar way that Darby Allin is cool by just being Darby Allin. So as far as where she goes, though, with this whole Ruby versus Britt Baker, was it right for them to have this feud immediately? I think so. Because it puts Ruby Soho in the title picture right out of the gate, and it makes her a big deal, puts an emphasis on her. People are going to be like, huh, man, Ruby Riott. Oh, she's Ruby Soho now? Okay, cool. They go check her out. They go check out what's going on in AEW. It's like, oh, who's she fighting? Britt Baker. Oh, damn, Britt Baker's talented. And then Britt Baker gets over with the fans. So it's simple and effective. And I think the whole question is, in this feud, does she actually have a chance to beat Britt Baker? Conventional wisdom would tell you no, right? Conventional wisdom would tell you that Britt Baker is probably going to hold on to the AEW Women's World Title for maybe even the next year. But honestly, one thing that we've learned from AEW, to quote Sting from WCW, is the only thing that's for sure is that nothing's for sure, because AEW has such an effective and such a profound way of absorbing you in a good way that makes sense, that you're just like, oh my God, that is so cool. Because I could see Ruby Soho. I could see her winning. I could see her winning in Queens at the September 22nd show, which I'm assuming is when they're going to have this match. I could see her beating Britt Baker for the title. And then, maybe Britt Baker doing a screwy finish down the line and winning it back. And, people say, oh, they hot potatoed the belt. Well, I think that wouldn't be an effective use, because then Ruby Soho would have a reason to keep on going and keep fighting and climb her way back into the women's world title picture. And then, then you could do your match the Baker Thunder Rosa 3, which honestly at this point, that's a match that might not even need the title. Because the title is what you use to build up stars that you want to build up or build up your company and your brand. Britt Baker versus even Ruby Soho doesn't really need the title. It means a lot more because it has a title, but Thunder Rosa and Britt Baker for the title, you could take the title out of that and that could be a main event. And it has been a main event. It is main evented at Dynamite. So I think there's definitely a possibility that Ruby Soho just comes in there and beats Britt Baker. Would I do it? Probably not, but I wouldn't be mad because Britt Baker is so over. And the only question is, do you want to kind of keep on going with that for a little bit longer and ride it out, which again, it makes sense. But I'm excited for the match because it's compelling. It is truly compelling in the world of where kayfabe doesn't exist. For matches to be this compelling and for a matchup to be this compelling, I think is great. And it shows you that even the simplest of bookings can work, and they can have such a and they can work fans into a frenzy. Like, look at me right now. I don't know who's gonna win, but I think it's gonna be great. I am so glad that Ruby Soho won the Casino Battle Royale. The pop was amazing. The way that her expression when she won was just was you couldn't help but be happy. Like I said, you couldn't help but be happy. The way she hugged Bryce Remsburg afterwards, like you could see there was real emotion, and he was even happy for her victory. It was perfect. Like, look at this. Look at Bryce Remsburg here. Even he's like, yeah, she won. Yes, it was great. And look, there's a lot of stuff coming out of this Battle Royal too. Look at this feud. Thunder Rosa and Ruby Soho down the line could be a big feud because they had a great exchange. And Thunder Rosa at the end of that Battle Royal when she got eliminated by Ruby Soho was pissed. And you could tell it. And wrestling. It was great. Going out of this, though, or coming out of this, rather, the other question coming out of the Casino Battle Royale, I think, is does AEW have an excuse? And by that, I mean, do they have an excuse now not to push women's storylines further? Because originally the excuse was, okay, they have a lot of talented women, but people don't know them as well. You know, they need a little more time to really build out the roster and everything. Okay, fair enough. When they originally started in 2019, fair enough, I guess, to an extent. And then after a while, you got to see, okay, they got the title over. They got some women over, and now we've just kind of been waiting for a little bit for them to finally pull the trigger on non-title storylines involving the women's roster. And we, even to this date, we have not seen that. But coming out of this Battle Royale, rather, I don't think there's a lot of excuses left because you have now Ruby Soho and Britt Baker. You have those two world title. That's a feud. That's a story that's going to play out on TV. You also have now a feud that I think could work. Nyla Rose, who eliminated the undefeated Jade Cargill. And Nyla Rose, everyone knows she's a monster. Jade Cargill, she's undefeated, and she's like booked like she's a monster. Irresistible force, immovable object. I mean, just go after it. Let them do their thing. That's a match. That's a story you can produce TV time for. And it's right there coming out of this Battle Royale. There's other things. The feud with the Dark Order members, Anna Jay and Ty Conti and Penelope Ford and the Bunny. There's other things you can do with them as well. So I think they've gotten to the point now where they have these already instilled storylines. They just really need to just give it TV time anyway, or at this point. And I'm not talking about Dark. I'm talking about put them on Rampage. Give them 20 or 10, 15 minutes on Dynamite. Like give them as much time as you give other programs. Invest as much time as you do in other programs, and you will see the rewards and you will see the response from fans be positive because they are invested. Anna Jay got a great pop when she returned at the Battle Royale. Thunder Rosa, she's great and everyone knows it. Jade Cargill and Nyla Rose, that's a match that people want to see. So again, it's not just so much booking these matches, which Tony Khan does a good job of doing. It's about giving them time and giving them stakes outside of the title. One person who I will say, though, has not been used to the best of her ability since she lost the title, definitely was Hikaru Shida. Hikaru Shida has been severely underutilized. And I was surprised because she's the longest running champion in the history of All Elite Wrestling. A year-long title reign. She was awarded with a new belt. She lost it, and then what's she do? She's on Dark. Why is she not in your plans? If she asks for time off, that's fine. I understand that. But I think it's time to get her off of Dark and have her doing something. Because she is talented enough, more than talented enough. She has that credibility. She has that legitimacy as the longest running champion in the history of All Elite Wrestling. And even in the Battle Royale, she got eliminated. Like, she was like one of the first people eliminated. And she kind of looked like, just another jobber who was there. And I didn't like that. I'm not going to lie. I didn't like that. So I think they've come a long way. There's a ways to go. But there are definitely no more excuses because they have the talent. Ruby Soho's addition put them over the top. They have the talent. It's about executing. It's about putting storylines in place. And it's about giving the storylines time. So it's what I want to see. And I like AEW. And I will tell you when I like it. And I will tell you when I think they need to do better. And the women's division, and I know Tony Khan knows it, needs to be better as far as giving them time and giving them legitimate stakes. But we'll see what happens with that. I trust them moving forward, but I'm also going to keep it real. I'm going to keep it real. So we'll see what happens with that. Guys, again, if you haven't already, please hit that like button, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you get notified whenever a new video is released. Excuse me. Anyway, so let's move on and talk about one of the biggest draws to All Out this weekend. Let's talk about CM Punk's in-ring return. CM Punk faced off against Darby Allin at AEW All Out 2021 in a match that was highly anticipated, that was built up for only the past few weeks, but was honestly probably the biggest draw coming into this card for this event. And it did not disappoint. And I think there was very little chance for it to disappoint. CM Punk just showing up and wrestling in whatever he was wearing, we'll get to that in a minute, was honestly just all you needed to see. And a lot of people are asking, how did the match go? What did you think of the match? Does CM Punk still got it? And I think early on, we saw an exchange with them that a lot of people probably saw coming. They did the whole, let's give it time to breathe. Everyone's chanting CM Punk, and you still got it before he even does a move. And that giving it time to breathe, I get it. Okay. And do a few spots, and then the whole, I can't believe that spot. Like, I can't believe he did that spot. Okay, that was going to happen. You move after that. Like, early on, it was a bit slow getting started, but when it got going, Darby and Punk did a very good job. And I think CM Punk, if we're asking, does he still got it? Yeah, he does. He is still a great performer. He is still a good wrestler. And I think Darby Allin, though, he's never going to get enough credit for this match as CM Punk. And that's because it was Punk's return match. Darby Allin in this match was spectacular. Bumped like a boss for CM Punk. Got him over. He made everything look like it hurt, like only Darby Allin can do. Darby Allin, if you're asking if we're doing MVPs for the match, Punk was great. But Darby Allin was the MVP of this match. And I'm not saying he called the match but he really dictated a lot of how people responded to CM Punk's offense in this match, and he did a great job of getting Punk over. Likewise, I think CM Punk did a great job of getting Darby Allin over, but again, I'm not going to debate those things. Oh my God, Punk needed Darby Allin. No, he didn't. He could have been in there with anyone, but Darby Allin was the perfect first opponent for him. So, moving on from that, I think that Darby Allin and CM Punk, was it the best match of the night? No, but on a card that had like a bunch of really, really, really good matches, I think it's fine. It was still a great match. And it was a spectacle. It was exactly what it needed to be and exactly what people wanted it to be. CM Punk returned after 7 years, and he wrestled a great match. People loved it. The crowd was eating it up, and you could see the expression on CM Punk's face before, during, and after the match. He was elated. There was a little nervousness you could tell on his part, and it didn't matter because he's still fine in the ring. He is there some rust he probably has to work out? Sure, everyone does, but I give him. But he will be fine wrestling moving forward. One thing I will say is, Punk, you're probably not gonna listen to me. You're probably gonna block me on Twitter, but the tights, bro. You got to go back to the old wrestling tights. Or just oof. I mean, it was fine. It was fine. I didn't really care about it, honestly. It's just like a funny thing looking back, right? The tights were like the long pants or whatever, the long John Punk. But yeah, it was fine. I didn't care too much about it. The match was amazing, though. It was amazing moments, and that's what All Out also delivered. It not only delivered amazing matches, but amazing moments, which WWE likes to tout all the time. This was an amazing, historic moment in wrestling. The fact that Sting, Darby Allin, and CM Punk were all in the ring to end at the end after CM Punk had defeated Darby Allin with the GTS. The fact that they were all three together in the ring, shook hands, and you saw those three generations of talent in Sting, Darby Allin, and CM Punk all used to the best of their ability in that moment and all working as a cohesive unit. It was amazing. It was an amazing moment. And I think all the marks are like, oh, CM Punk fucked up and did this, blah, blah, blah. Shut your mouths. It was fine. And you know it. And if you don't, and if you're still going to say no, go back and watch it. Go back and watch it. And if you want to critique every little thing he did wrong, okay, cool, go ahead. I don't know how you're ever going to be happy, but go ahead. But it was great. It was great. And honestly, that's all I have to say about that. Yeah, that's all I have to say about that. CM Punk returning to wrestling 2021, 5 stars, Meltzer, Tokyo Dome, book it, brother. Anyway, so let's keep this train rolling, the All Out train I'm talking, and talk about one of the very many shock debuts that happened at AEW All Out 2021. And look, we already talked about Ruby Soho. We already talked about CM Punk's return, although that wasn't a shock. But one debut that did shock a lot of people happened right after the main event. And the main event was, of course, Christian Cage taking on Kenny Omega for the AEW World title. But after Christian Cage was defeated by Kenny Omega, we saw the debut of Adam Cole. Adam Cole, baby, is all elite, and it is amazing. Adam Cole, baby, is all elite as he made his AEW debut on Sunday night. Oh, I fucked up. We're going to redo that because I can. It's my show. Adam Cole is all elite, baby. Cole made his shock debut for All Elite Wrestling at the conclusion of the All Out pay-per-view on Sunday, siding with Kenny Omega and the Elite before another big name that we'll talk about later made his debut. Cole made his shock debut at the conclusion of that match, like I said, and he came down to the ring as the Elite were in the ring, had already defeated Christian Cage and had beaten up Jurassic Express, and he came out from the heel entrance. A lot of people didn't really have time to notice it because they were already shocked that Adam Cole was there. And he comes down, he goes face-to-face with the Elite, does his little Adam Cole baby thing, and then he delivers a super kick to Jungle Boy, and he turns heel on within the first 2 minutes. But it was one of the biggest shocks because we'd heard that Bryan Danielson was going to be there. That was the big news. But we had heard very little, very, very little about Adam Cole and whether or not he was going to be there. And so when he came out instead of Bryan Danielson, the lights go out. Everyone's like, okay, Bryan Danielson's coming. No, it was Adam Cole, baby. And when you heard that, it's all about that boom, crowd was electric. It was a great moment. And I think this was a great move, honestly, by AEW because Adam Cole was someone who many thought was not going to be available, even Adam Cole by his own admission. Adam Cole, at the All Out press conference afterwards, the media scrum, he said that he even didn't realize that his contract with WWE was up until about a few weeks before it was up. And he thought he had another 6 months, and so did WWE. But apparently, I don't know how, by the way, nobody knew his contract status, even including WWE who signed him, but is what it is. But he said he wasn't expecting it. And then when the opportunity came available, we really thought about it. And look, he thought about it and he came to the conclusion AEW is the place to go. And it's because of the fans. It's because of the fact that he is best friends with all of the EVPs. It's because of the fact that the fans are rabid and insane and he loves it. And, let's not kid ourselves. It also probably has a little something to do with Dr. Britt Baker, DMD, doing a little convincing. They're obviously in a relationship. I think there were a lot of factors that he probably considered. And he saw that, yay, I'm going to go here and they're going to use me to a great ability. He's seen probably what's happened to some people who go up to the main roster who were great in NXT. Karrion Kross is the most recent example of someone like that. And he's seen that they flopped. And he's seen that the creative behind them is not that great. And it's not that enticing to the fans. And people don't get over there. So he knows that he can get over here. The money is probably comparable. The fact that he can keep his Twitch is honestly probably a big thing for him too. So I think it makes sense. And for AEW, this is... Again, it's a move you make because when the best free agents are out there, you're going to get them. And Adam Cole was a top free agent that AEW should get, that any wrestling company should get. WWE were trying to get. And look, if Adam Cole doesn't, go to WWE in 2017, there's a very, very good chance that he's in AEW, that he's one of the EVPs in AEW. Like that's how close he is and was and still is obviously to the Elite. So he's back with the Elite, and I think there's a lot that AEW can do moving forward with him. They're obviously, I think, building up a big 5-man or 10-man tag team match, 5-on-5 at the September 22nd show at Arthur Ashe Stadium. They have the Elite and, Bryan Danielson, Jurassic Express, and Christian Cage. I think that's what they're probably going to build towards. So you're going to see Adam Cole probably wrestle very quickly. You don't be surprised if you see him on Dynamite to open the show just right out of the gate and cut an amazing promo like only he can. Although Dynamite, they don't really cut promos right out of the gate. So, but expect him to do so at some point. I think it's an easy move, easy decision to make if you're AEW. I think, honestly, if I was Adam Cole, I probably would have done the same. Now, as far as what it means for future talent in WWE, I think this is a big defection. I think this is not even a defection. It's just a big deal that Adam Cole, he had all the cards. And we talked about this with the Mick Foley thing. The Mick Foley said that, there's talent who are looking at AEW as more appealing than WWE at this point. And Adam Cole apparently was one of that talent. And look, there's extraneous factors. I understand that. But he at the end of the day, looked at two contracts, basically. He probably got a very generous offer from WWE. And he obviously got another generous offer from AEW. And he still went with AEW. That just shows a lot, that a big-time talent like Adam Cole would do that. And I'm very much excited to see what he and the Elite do. They had great chemistry in Ring of Honor. I thought that's where Adam Cole did a lot of his best work. He did a lot of great work in NXT, and I can't wait to see him, use that and apply that skill that he's gotten over the past few years and apply that with the AEW roster because there's so many great matchups for Adam Cole. Adam Cole versus Hangman Adam Page is something I want to see. The Battle of the Atoms, Adam versus Adam. Don't sue me, What Culture. But there's so many matches you can do. I'm excited for it. And I'm excited for you guys to be along for the ride. And if you want to be along for the ride, the best way to do that is hit us up at Real Take Sports on Twitter. Again, at Real Take Sports on Twitter, Real Take Sports Talk on Facebook, facebook.com/Real Take Sports Talk. And also be sure to hit that like button, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you get notified whenever a new video is released. YouTube.com/Real Take Sports. Let's continue talking about how amazing All Out was because, again, I will emphasize this until you and I are both blue in the face. It is the best wrestling pay-per-view since WrestleMania X7. Fight me, Marks. But let's continue talking about this as I sip my water very quickly. Needed that. Anyway. Let's continue talking about this, and let's get to the Lucha Bros versus the Young Bucks for the AEW Tag Team titles. Perfection personified. The best tag team match that this announcer has ever seen. Oh, I'm not an announcer. Maybe I should do something else. The best tag team match that this host has ever seen took place at All Out this past Sunday in Chicago, Illinois, as the Lucha Brothers took on the reigning champions, the Young Bucks, and defeated them in a steel cage match for the AEW World Tag Team titles. It was perfection personified, people. I have never seen a better tag team match in my lifetime before, and this was so great. There was so much. The fact that these two teams had a great match at the original All Out in 2019, the fact that these two have had great chemistry, that there's been an ongoing feud between different members of the Elite and members of the Lucha Brothers, the fact that these two teams might have four of the best in-ring performers in wrestling today. Rey Fenix, by the way, I don't care what anyone says, is the most fun to watch. The most fun to watch in-ring performer there is. Go and watch his match with Kenny Omega. Go and watch this match at AEW All Out. Amazing. They put on a masterclass as to what a tag team should be. It is even more perfect given the fact that these are two pairs of legitimate brothers facing each other in the Young Bucks and the Lucha Brothers. And the way that they built this match was amazing. The use of the cage was brilliant, and the fact that they kept everyone out, and it was just these two teams, 2 against 2. I thought that was great. This feud needed that. This match needed that. And we saw legitimately what these two teams can do in a fair contest. I love the fact that, they were able to get the heel bag in there. And then we saw that Nick Jackson took out an Air Jordan that had thumbtacks applied to the bottom. And as he goes to super kick, Rey Fenix, the older brother Penta, steps in front of him and takes the blow for his younger brother. That was one of my favorite spots I've ever seen. It was it's a work, but it was emotional even. Like it told a story that the older brother wants to protect his younger brother. And then Rey Fenix obviously did that huge crossbody off that cage, that cage, which is, by the way, much bigger than a normal steel cage that we're used to seeing in TNA and WWE. That thing is really freaking big. I was thanking God they didn't do the Canadian Destroyer off of there, because that was there are a lot of people want to see the Canadian Destroyer. We saw one off the top rope, which was fine, but I did not want to see that. Someone was going to get hurt during that, but Rey Fenix does a crossbody. He does an amazing, I don't even know he walks on the side of the cage, does a flip and arm drag. I don't know. It was amazing. These two teams killed it, and at the end of the day, we saw the Lucha Brothers beating Nick and Matt Jackson, and finally becoming the AEW World Tag Team title holders and the champions. Again, the best tag team match I've seen ever. I think it was perfect. It's the match of the year. It's match of the year, definitely. Again, all respect to Ilya Dragunov versus Walter, which again is right up there at number 2, but this made me there was a spectacle, there was emotion, there was stakes, and there was a cage. There was a freaking cage. It's awesome. And both of these teams are two of the best in the world. And honestly, one of the things that we saw here, and the way that AEW has built this up, is that we've seen that AEW has built up a tag team division not only to be an attraction and a draw, but a main event one at that, because this was the best match on the entire show. No disrespect to anyone, but this was the best match, and I think anyone who watched it will say it. And the reason is because you have 4 individuals who, on their own, are main event performers, 4 individuals who as teammates are main event performers, 4 individuals who as tag teams are main event performers, and the tag team scene is a main event draw. AEW, eventually, we are going to see these two teams main event a pay-per-view somewhere down the line. Because, again, these are world tag team titles, so they are world titles. So, excuse me. So, I think we will and we should see these two teams, because I want to see what they do next. They had an amazing ladder match at All Out 2019. They had a killer cage match just this past week. I want to see what they do next, because I don't know how they can top it, but my God, do they know how to wrestle? My God, do they know how to wrestle each other? And do they know how to make tag team wrestling look great? I think WWE, honestly, could take some notes, because they've treated their tag team division as a joke for a lot of the past 15 years. So again, it's just proof that if you put the time and the effort into building something up as legitimate, as credible, and as logical, even tag teams can be main event draws, because everybody going into this pay-per-view knew. It was so known that I think a lot of people even saw it as an afterthought that this match was going to be one of, if not the best match on the show. It was like already, Ray Phoenix versus or the Lucha Bros versus the Young Bucks. Oh, easily 5-star match. And we saw it and we were like, holy shit, that is a 5-star match. And like, they had a lot to live up to too. And the fact that they met, and some would even say exceeded those expectations, it's crazy. It is crazy. And it speaks to the level of talent and in the ring, and just the consistency and the stick-to-itiveness of the storylines and the bookers of AEW to elevate the tag team division to this point where they are main event level draws. Like, this was a huge draw for this pay-per-view, and it was perfect. And yeah, there's not really much to say, honestly, but big shout out to Ray Phoenix and Penta. Big shout out to the Young Bucks too, who got mangled and maimed in that match. But honestly, one of the best tag team matches I have ever seen. Anyway, guys, let's move on and talk about one of the best surprises I've ever seen, because this show was full of them, and my God, is this one really a shocker, because we had already seen a big shocking debut right before this. It's like literally 2-3 minutes before this. So let's talk about it. Bryan Danielson, a.k.a. formerly known as Daniel Bryan, made his AEW debut on All Out this Sunday. He appeared after Adam Cole made his shock debut for the company by helping Christian Cage and Jurassic Express fight off the Elite to end the night. And just like that, AEW got the best technical wrestler in the world on their roster, the American Dragon. Bryan Danielson is all elite, and he is there to kick people's freaking heads in. That's a quote from him. Well, he didn't say freaking, but you know what I mean. But he plans on kicking a lot of people's heads in, and he says he's going to leave a lot of the business stuff to Tony Khan, a lot of the storylines creative to Tony Khan. He is just there to wrestle, and I think that is a beautiful, beautiful thing. He also noted in a promo that he cut after All Out went off the air to the fans in attendance that while he truly loved WWE and was very happy there, he came to AEW for 3 reasons. 1, the young talent that is there in the back. He wants to compete against them. He wants to fight them. He wants to kick their heads in. 2, the AEW fans, their passion for wrestling, their passion for the wrestlers, their passion for the product. And 3, because he is a professional wrestler. My God. And the way they did this, by the way, was great. Having Adam Cole come out and everyone thinking, oh, this is the big surprise, and there can only be one. This was great. This was great. And then they do their thing, and everyone thinks it's over. Kenny Omega's about to say goodnight. And you hear Trap of the Valkyries come up, because listen to that song. It's hilarious. But you hear his music, and then Bryan Danielson comes up, and you have 2 shocking debuts all in one time, all like in a matter of like 5 minutes, and it worked. And it's something that a lot of people say. If you had told me before this that they were going to do this, I'd be like, I don't know if that'll work. Shows you what I know. It worked, and it worked beautifully, and it was such a great moment, and it was such a great capping off, I guess, or it capped off the night very well, and it's going to lead into just an amazing show on Dynamite, an amazing show on Rampage, an amazing show moving forward, because you've now showed that you've got these huge talent, you've debuted them at your biggest show, and people are going to be interested in seeing them moving forward. So, And honestly, it was a bigger shock. Bryan Danielson's debut was also a bigger shock, considering we'd already seen Adam Cole, because we legitimately thought that was going to be the only one, that he was the big debut. So nobody thought they were going to do both, but Tony Khan did it again. Other question, is this a game changer for AEW? And I think that the answer to that is quite simple. Yes, it's a huge game changer. Not only because you got Bryan Danielson, who is beloved by fans across the world, it's because he's the best wrestler on the planet. And he's going to go out there and prove it by wrestling people every week. And I think the draw of Bryan Danielson itself is great. I think that watching him wrestle and watching him wrestle a style that we probably have not seen him wrestle in a while, because a lot of people are probably expecting him to wrestle a similar style that he did in WWE, but I think we're going to see a different style. He's still going to do a lot of things. Like, he obviously is still going to do the running knee. He did it on Sunday. But I think there's going to be more of an emphasis on his mat approach, his grappling style of wrestling. You know, you're going to see more submissions. You're going to see more emphasis on other things. So I think it's going to be a great. I think it's going to be a great thing for Bryan Danielson rather, to be in AEW, and it's going to do wonders for the talent who are already there. So we're going to see different Bryan Danielson. It is a game changer. On top of that, we're going to see a lot of dream matches. Bryan Danielson said, "I am here to wrestle some of the best young performers that AEW has to offer." So, yeah, are we going to see Punk versus Bryan? Yes, which is a great match. And we're going to see it in the confines of an AEW arena, like an AEW audience. That's going to be crazy. But we're also going to see Punk or Bryan versus Jungle Boy at some point. We're also going to see Bryan versus MJF at some point. We're going to see Bryan versus Sammy Guevara. The opportunities for dream matchups are endless. And if you like Bryan Danielson, if you love wrestling and you want to see some great matches with some young talent and then make some young talent, it's perfect. And yeah, I think I've covered all of that to the best I could. And again, I'm probably the biggest Bryan Danielson fan there is, so I'm excited to see what he does. Let's move on, and I think are we sticking with AEW? Let's move on to some WWE. Like I said, there's going to be a little bit of a different show. So let's move on to WWE and kind of take a break from AEW and marking out about it. But let's talk about WWE and one of their main pay-per-views, the main pay-per-view that WWE has to offer, and that is WrestleMania. So before we get to that, though, be sure to hit that like button, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you get notified whenever a new video is released. So let's talk about it. WrestleMania 38 in Dallas will be 2 nights, according to a report from Fightful Select. That is the plan as of last week for the show to be held at AT&T Stadium in Arlington, Texas, and to be split up into a 2-night event on Saturday, April 2nd, and Sunday, April 3rd. And if these plans are confirmed, it will be the first ever 2-night WrestleMania to be held in front of a full crowd. The move to another 2-night WrestleMania would also mean that we are now going to see 3 consecutive 2-night WrestleManias, and this could be the mainstay. This could be the move moving forward. This could be, this could just be the thing that happens moving forward. Bianca Belair, we saw in night 1 of WrestleMania this past year, defeat Sasha Banks for the SmackDown Women's title, and then we saw Roman Reigns the second night in the main event defeat Bryan and Edge, and I think this is the perfect move. I was clamoring for this after they had announced that they were going to bring WrestleMania back to Dallas. I really wanted them to bring back WrestleMania in a 2-night fashion. And it's partially because I don't want to sit there and see a 12-match WrestleMania, sit there for 8 hours and watch. It's a lot. It is a lot. And I don't think the crowd wants to sit there for that long. They're going to be tired after the first few hours. But I think doing 2 shows, each 3 or 4 hours each, is perfect. The crowd doesn't get too tired, and it gives things time to breathe. You can build up 2 nights. I think there's a lot of advantages to this for both the fans and WWE itself. From the fans' perspective, you're not going to get tired out. From WWE's perspective, WrestleMania is going to sell out. People are going to WrestleMania. They're going to go on both nights. If they're going to Dallas, you're traveling to Dallas, you're going to go both nights. The tickets, they're not as expensive as people sometimes think they are. So they're going to have essentially a packed house both nights. They're going to sell more tickets. They're going to sell more. They're going to get more money at the gate. They're going to have more views on the network or on Peacock. They're going to bring in more viewers. It's a win-win. They're making more money. All they have to do is put on another show at the stadium that they're going to have that weekend anyway. So it makes sense from a financial perspective. It makes sense from a booking perspective too, because it allows you to legitimately have two main events, and for you to give both main events that same feeling, that same essence of importance. Because we saw that this year. Bianca Belair versus Sasha Banks was the main event of WrestleMania Night 1. And it felt like a main event because it went on last, and it gave us that closing moment of the show. Same thing with Night 2. We felt like, and look, it brings in audiences for both nights. You could split the card down and actually make like attractions on both nights, and it'll work. So I think this is a win-win for the fans. I think this is a win-win for WWE. I don't see why you would ever go back to the singular one-night WrestleMania, because I think it's just too much. It's been proven to be too much. Fans like the two-night style better. I think wrestlers probably prefer it too, because it gets their stuff over. It gets them over more. You know, instead of having to pack everyone in a huge, ginormous battle royal, you can have more storylines. You have room to have more storylines and have matches that actually mean something. Now, are they going to do that? It's a different thing, but the idea is much better to have it on both nights. Fans also prefer it. I could go on forever about this, but I think this is the right move. Yeah, so let's go in the chat real quick. Lyle's Music says, can't wait. I can't either. The two-night WrestleMania is going to be amazing. Like, it was so pleasant to watch this year, honestly. And it was compared to like years before where it was honestly getting to be work. I'm just excited. I'm excited. Anyway, let's stick with WWE and talk about some developments that were happening this past week on WWE SmackDown Live. As I change my graphic very quickly. So let's talk about Demon King Balor. This is something. So let's talk about it here. WWE may have teased the return of the Demon King after last week's SmackDown on Fox. After the match where Roman Reigns defeated Finn Balor for the WWE Universal title, Paul Heyman and Reigns were walking down the ramp as Reigns' music was briefly interrupted by a red light and the sound of a heartbeat over the arena soundboard. Reigns was caught off guard for a minute by the interruption, but it quickly went away, and Reigns just kind of forgot about it and kept walking as SmackDown went off the air. The post-match moment led to many fans speculating that we may see Balor return to his demon persona, the persona of the demon that he used for all of his big matches in NXT, for some of his big matches in WWE before they kind of got rid of that. The last time we saw that was at WWE Super Showdown Live from Saudi Arabia, where he defeated Andrade for the Intercontinental Championship. So, you know, it's a weird thing because Finn Balor has said in the past that he saw the demon gimmick as a crutch for him. He saw it as a crutch, as something that you know made it difficult for him to go out there, and maybe made it put a lot too much pressure on him to go out there and have, you know, great matches, or it didn't fit with the storylines, or or it got to the point where the gimmick was not allowed to be as vulnerable as he probably should have been as far as his character. So I think that's true in a way, because to have a gimmick where you can go to this alter ego and just win matches and be dominant, it's a good thing. We saw it. It's if it's booked right, it can work. Look at Bray Wyatt. Look at with the Fiend. Like they used it, I think, pretty well until Bray Wyatt, the Fiend, lost, which is a gimmick that's not supposed to lose. But the Demon Finn Balor, I think, is a good thing to come back, and especially if you want to make it a threat and a legitimate threat to Roman Reigns' Universal title, because it shows that Finn Balor has to go to a place that he hasn't gone to in a while, that he honestly does not want to go to. And one place that he has a very high success rate as, Like, go back and watch him in NXT as the Demon King. The only time he ever lost was, I believe, as he was on his way out of NXT against Samoa Joe. So he is. So I think the Demon persona is going to be fine. I don't think it's going to be a crutch or as much of a crutch as he thinks it's going to be. And I think fans are going to dig it. I think it's going to be over. The only question is WWE going to ruin it by having him booked to get destroyed or lose in a way that makes him look too vulnerable? That's the part where I think there's some disagreement amongst fans. That's the part where I think we honestly might see it become a crutch, because you only do this, in my opinion, if Finn Balor wins. Finn Balor has to win the Universal title for you to do this. Otherwise, I don't think you tease it. I don't think you go to these lengths to make Finn Balor the guy. Because if he's just going to be more fodder for Roman Reigns, you could build up anyone. You could have another program. You could do the program with him and Brock. Is there a chance that they're working towards Roman and Brock in the future in a non-title way? I think that's possible. I do think that's very possible, because you could do a situation where Roman Reigns is cost the Universal title by Brock Lesnar and Finn Balor ends up winning it, some way. And I think that's, if Balor were to win, I think that's the only way that happens, if we're being honest, because I don't think WWE is going to put anyone over clean on Roman right now. So there's a lot of interesting scenarios that could happen, but you don't bring this gimmick back to make Balor look weak and just lose in a very similar manner he did on SmackDown, because he put up a great fight, but he lost. And I don't think you do that if you're bringing back the Demon, because it just doesn't make sense for Balor. The thing is, Roman's going to be fine. Roman at this point is fine. So if he wins, it's not really going to change too much. But for Balor, it could be a huge loss for him. It could be honestly a profound, hugely bad loss for him. So I wouldn't do that. Anyway, you know what I would do though? I would hit that like button, subscribe, and hit that notification bell, so you get notified whenever a new video is released. We got daily videos coming out every single day, because I'm a maniac on the floor. And I'm dancing like I never danced before. I'm not really dancing though. Let's see, what else do we have to talk about today? Do we have anything else on the official list of things to talk about? I don't know. If you guys have any questions in the chat, by the way, please hit it up, light it up. Let me know what's on your minds, and let me know what you want to talk about. I think we've actually, by God, by George, I've done it. I have talked about everything that was on my list of things to talk about today. So with that, we'll go to Real Take Fan Talk. What do you guys have as far as questions? I have a few questions, actually, I can read out from Twitter and online and through email that I can read out. But if there's anyone in the chat right now who wants to ask a question, feel free to do so. One of the questions I got was actually about All Out, and this is from Sasha from Texas. Thank you for listening to the show, Sasha. Sasha asks, what match at All Out do you think is not going to get the credit it probably deserves? Interesting question. That's an interesting question. I would probably say the match that's not going to get the attention that it deserves, it depends on the context of it. I would probably go with the main event match with Christian Cage and Kenny Omega, because we all knew that match, we all knew what the result was going to be going in, and I think that's partially the reason why it was a bit overlooked, and we already seen it at Rampage 2 weeks before. So I think that it was overlooked going in and coming out of it because of the moments that followed with Adam Cole and Bryan Danielson appearing and debuting for AEW. So I do think that match was overlooked, because if you watch it back, that's a damn good match. Like, Christian, his gimmick is outwork everyone. He worked his ass off. He worked his ass off in that match. He bumped like a boss for Omega. Omega did the same for him. These two went out and had a very, very good match and a very good, dare I say, great main event match. It just wasn't the best match on the card, but the draw also wasn't a match. It was what's going to happen after the match. So it is going to be overlooked, but I do want to say that I think Kenny Omega and Christian Cage went out there and had an amazing match for the AEW World title. Other question, this one from Nick from Maryland. Ooh, thank you, Nick. From the best state in the union. He asks, what do you think about the current state of Raw? I already kind of answered this, but what do you think about the current state of Raw? recently it's been pretty bad. I'm not sure I'm going to watch it any longer. Yeah, I wouldn't watch it either. Thank you, by the way, Nick, for that question. Yeah, it's not great. Raw sucks. I don't know how else to put it. I feel like I've gone over that a lot in the beginning of this episode, but Raw, it just suffers from bad creative, too many rematches, using like the same 8 talent, and redundancy in storylines. Like they're doing now they're doing the same thing they did with Riddle and Randy Orton, the Odd Couple tag team with Rhea Ripley and Nikki Ash. So I mean, it's just laziness, complacency, all of the above. It could emphasize the problems of WWE Raw. However, lazy and complacency will never emphasize the problems of this channel. YouTube.com/Real Take Sports, Twitter.com/Real Take Sports, Facebook.com/Real Take Sports Talk, Instagram @Real Take Sports Talk. And of course, if you're listening to this on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, please hit that follow button and give us a 5-star review for those listening on Apple Podcasts. I have been Umar from Real Take Sports. I've enjoyed talking about wrestling for the past hour and a half, and hopefully we'll see you down the line. We'll be back next week. We also got Real Take Sports Talk coming to you live Wednesdays at 7 p.m. Real Take Football Talk for those football fans, getting you ready for game day, getting you ready for the NFL season, for the slate of games. We're going to go over every single game, talk about the matchups and whatnot. This Sunday morning, right around 10 a.m., it'll be up on youtube.com/Real Take Sports this week. So be sure to subscribe there to check that out and all that jazz. We will see you later.